I was sentenced my natural born life to die in prison.
As a 17-year-old, Terrance Lewis was convicted of murder, always maintaining that he did not commit the crime. Now we know the truth, and he's sharing it on The Pulse. Guys, welcome to another episode of The Pulse. This one is a little bit different. So a lot of times you're used to some of the performers or entertainers, but the theme of the show is use your voice for good. And our guest today, Mr. Terrance Lewis, is somebody with a tremendous story, but kind of on the back end of that story has dedicated his life to using his voice for good. I appreciate you coming in.
Thanks for having me, man. I'm glad to be here.
So, I don't know, is there an easy way to tell your story? You were obviously wrongfully convicted.
Yeah.
But how did that start?
At a young age of, as an adolescent at the age of 17, I was wrongfully accused and subsequently convicted of murder for a crime that I didn't commit. I did a total of 21 and a half years on a wrongful conviction on murder.
You never said, I did this, you never compromised, you never agreed to please.
No, never. The reality is, an innocent man shouldn't, succumb or to fabricate, something that isn't in fact true. The reality is that, I didn't commit the crime, but nonetheless, I was sentenced my natural born life to die in prison.
I know this is hard to revisit, but this is what you do. Like, you're sharing your story to try to make it better for other people.
Exactly.
Coming after you. You were convicted without physical evidence.
True.
No guns, no weapons, nothing that connected you.
Exactly.
You were convicted based on the strength of the testimony of one person who admitted that they had used drugs, crack
cocaine,
moments before the incident happened.
Quote unquote, moments before it happened.
And then convicted largely because your nickname since childhood was Stink.
Exactly.
They said that the person who was involved in this had the nickname Stink.
Had a nickname Stink, yeah.
And that got you a murder conviction.
Yeah, I was sentenced to life in prison based upon the testimony of an admitted crack user. Her words, quote unquote, she smoked crack cocaine moments before it happened, with numerous inconsistent statements and what she believed had transpired the night of the crime. But the reality is that during that time, during that era, the Philadelphia Police Department, the DA office at that time, that particular administration, they was gun-ho on just, whatever cases was open to get them closed at whatever cost. So whatever that means, and we call it, I guess, in the universal world, collateral damage.
You are sentenced to life, go into jail at 19, I believe.
Yes.
And took it upon yourself to just learn the legal system.
Absolutely.
As that happened, you then find out that one of the people who was there at the crime that night said to their attorney, that's not him. I had never met that guy. I met him when we came to court together. And the attorney blocked that from getting into testimony.
He wasn't prepared. He came in ready to just, can he looking at the evidence and say, it's obvious that this woman is lying, that she's seen pink elephants that day, could have, right? So don't even worry about that, and you keep that to yourself.
Obviously, this ends up, I guess, if you can call it a happy story, in that you didn't do life, but you did 20 plus years in prison. You went through the process of defending yourself.
I immediately established my GED, and I took a correspondent course and became a paralegal and started to really learn the legalese, learn the jargon, because what was at stake literally was my natural life, right? I actually did from 2001 up to 2009 as a pro se litigant. And once I finally got to federal court, the Eastern District of Federal Court, I had a judge looked at my petition, and she considered it on his merits, meaning for what it was worth, and said, all right, this guy's a pro se litigant. I hear what he's saying, I get what he's saying, and I'm going to appoint him an attorney. I got a hearing on what I was proclaiming and what I was asserting, right? And what I've been asserting since day one. Yeah. And she agreed with me. She unequivocally agreed with me. Once my federal judge said unequivocally, she said that I totally believe in your innocence, but due to the hierarchy in regards to how the system is set up, how it's rigged, right? How to keep you captive. She said that her hands was tied and she couldn't do nothing.
When I met you, met you, spoke with you on the phone in 2018, you provided the documentation from that judge.
Exactly.
So that judge said he was not there.
Yes.
He did not do this. I believe the testimony, but because of procedural and technical issues, sorry.
Yeah.
We can't let him out.
That shattered my heart. There's a difference between having your heart broke and having it shattered. That shattered my heart.
Right. I learned. I went to law school in prison. I was 17. I go through this whole process. Finally, I proved my innocence.
That was the law, and sad to say, that is still the law till this day. It hasn't been repealed. So if you have concrete evidence, I'm talking about witnesses pointing, you have actual videotape showing that you was in Bogota, you was elsewhere. If you don't file it in a year's time, then it's irrelevant. That's law.
I don't think that people firmly grasp in a situation like yours how much evidence can be on the side of the wrongfully accused.
Oh, absolutely.
And convicted.
Absolutely.
And they remain convicted. We met, spoke to you while you were incarcerated in like 2018.
It was 2018. Yeah.
And I told people, thank God I listened to the letter. You've been writing to a lot of people.
I have. I wrote to President Bill Clinton. This was at the time when I really started writing. I wrote to Oprah. I wrote to CNN. I wrote to anybody who I thought had a voice and had some integrity, and they stood on transparency and right is right, wrong is wrong, and I really don't care about the gray area. That's all I needed. That's what I needed, and everybody, for the most part, which is true, my cries fell upon deaf ears except for you.
Now that I've met you and known you and you're out and living your life and helping other people, I can't imagine being the person who ignored that letter.
That would have been
in
nasty.
Hindsight.
Yeah, that would have been ill. That would have been no, seriously, that was a grave mistake. At least we can write it off, I think, if I was in your shoes and if I had dropped the ball like that. From a moral perspective, I'd have been like, damn, man, like, I know I would have, that's just how
Listen, for me, and this isn't about me, but for me, the interaction with you was a reminder of the power that people have on the other side of the microphone or the camera, and please don't take it for granted.
That's right.
And I remember talking to people about that going, this guy really didn't do it.
Yeah.
And nobody's paying attention to the story. Coming up next, he says he always kept the faith, but after 20 years, even faith is challenging.
That's what I used to always tell myself, that, everything, happens for a purpose. I couldn't identify.
What's the purpose of this?
Exactly.
I have already proved before a federal judge that I am, in fact, innocent.
I saw the document from a federal judge that indicates that after reviewing his case, she believes evidence points to the fact that he was not present and did not participate in the 1996 murder.
There's no words to describe. There's no, to discuss and the disappointment and the heartache.
You kept fighting.
I did.
Got out.
I got out.
What was that like?
Oh, man, that right there, let's just be honest. Allow me to be frank, right? I'm still, reaping the benefits of that particular moment. I really am.
I can't stop smiling. I can't stop smiling.
It was so surreal, and mind you, that was 4 years ago. But if we doing the math, and depending on what measuring stick we measuring with, I was away as a kid. I left as a kid, right? And I did 21 hard, excruciating years, right, for something I didn't do. Not just, it wasn't no traffic violation I was wrongfully accused of. I was the cream of the crop. They accused me of murder. So after walking that life, and then lo and behold, just being here on this side, and being active and being free, and feeling the air, smelling that fresh air, being on this side, man, and being with my loved ones. Yeah.
How did you do that? Like I was telling my producer earlier today, I can't imagine a life sentence if I did it. I absolutely can't imagine hearing somebody sentence me to life when in my heart I know I didn't.
Yeah.
Like at 17, 18, 19 years old, where'd you find the strength to not fold under pressure? Like, you fought the good fight and continue to fight it.
It's in my DNA, and it is yours too. I wish that on no one, not even my worst enemy, but the fact that, I come from a long line of strong, people, strong men and women. So like I said, in my DNA, and the fact that my faith in God, honestly, man, you can't do it. You can't walk through life, especially during a life sentence, and living a life in that atmosphere without actually, believing, in a greater, higher power. That's what I used to always tell myself, that everything happens for a purpose. I couldn't identify.
What's the purpose of this?
Exactly.
The details of the story. The Supreme Court changed the rule as it relates to juvenile lifers. You had pretty much exhausted all of your appeals.
All of them.
That Supreme Court rule changed and got you in front of people again.
Honorable judge.
And that particular judge, at that point, they were like, maybe we'll resentence. And that's how you got out, because you wouldn't have been in front of a judge again if the rule for juvenile lifers hadn't changed and they were reviewing cases.
You hit the nail on the head. The fact that when the crime occurred, when I was wrongfully accused and convicted, subsequently convicted of this crime, just so happened, fortunately for me, it happened when I was an adolescent, when I was 17. So in 2012, the United States Supreme Court, they came out with a ruling saying that you cannot just throw away and discard the life of a juvenile, starting at 17 on down, 16, 15. You got to give them a second bite at the apple. I mean, if they shown some rehabilitation and they're not irreparable, right? And so my number came up to bat, because I could not give up my innocence. So I watch individuals who honestly did their crime, being in the wrong place, wrong time, definitely, showed remorse and shown the level of rehabilitation, right? Had 17 years in, 18 years in, go get resentenced, express their remorse to the court, and go on about their happy lives. And I'm sitting up here still continue to rot away, and the only thing that my crime as of now it is that I continue to hold on to my innocence that we all agree upon.
You actually didn't do it.
It's like, do you see the?
It's insane. And if you had simply said, if you had lied. And said I did it.
They could give me time served.
Right.
And got kicked out. And would have had the amenities of 2 years of housing vouchers, and I would have, the list would have been endless. No, for the most part, all the programs, but that wasn't, So
you had to risk everything to fight.
I did. So because of that ruling, like you said, I went back to get resentenced. I was the last one. Right. And then my judge, Judge Barbara McDermott. I gotta say her name. Yeah, you just got to. Yeah. She looked at it, and she looked at it for its worth and its value, and she said, "Well, what is this here? What sentence do I suppose to give an innocent man? Is this the case?" And she read everything, and she wanted to ask the Conviction Integrity Unit. Did y'all see this? I think y'all need to pay attention. And they had came aboard and said, "No, we looking at it. We trying to find the judicial recourse." And being an honorable judge, and having jurisdiction in her courtroom of the jurisdictional matter, she looked at it and she did what she was supposed to do, what she took an oath to do, and she ruled accordingly. And then the rest is history.
That's how you got out. Next on The Pulse, yes, he won a multi-million-dollar lawsuit, but how much is half of your life really worth?
I was given, a check, right? And that check doesn't heal them wounds. I went through a stage of resentment, hate. I went through a stage of anger. I was young.
It's a troubling story as to how this even happened, but to make matters worse, Terrance is now finding out that Pennsylvania exonerees, even after 20 plus years of being incarcerated, get basically nothing. Then you get out. When people are wrongfully convicted in Pennsylvania and spend no matter how much time, you get out with nothing. They say, my bad, sorry about that, you're now at, there's no compensation, there's no housing, there's no training, there's nothing.
It's nothing, zero.
And now you're out, but essentially homeless,
True.
Unemployed,
True.
And still trying to clear up the fact that if people search your name, they see murder conviction.
Exactly.
So you get out, sue the city, win a settlement. We're not going to go into the details of all of that, but you win the settlement against the city, which was another indication that you had been wrongfully, sentenced and convicted for 20 plus years.
No money that I know of, and I'm just saying it from a practical standpoint. And like you said, without even having to disclose, what I mean, I was given, a check, right, and that check doesn't heal them wounds. It really don't. It don't soothe or mend them scars. That was placed upon throughout that journey. Granted, it was a startup kit for me to start putting the pieces of my life back together. Because mind you, when I was incarcerated, as a lifer, you're not given the access and the amenities of things that the tools and the resources which will be needed to make your life sustainable, and successful once you do re-enter back in society. Their goal,
supposed to get out.
Exactly. Their goal, look, you're a lifer, you're gonna die in jail, so you don't get to go to HVAC, you don't get to go to carpentry class, you can't be a welder. And when they did have these programs, there's no benefit to you. You got to at least be 2 years out from your minimum to even be able to sign up for these type of programs. So for me, I was just one pushing a broom.
Next up, now that Terrance Lewis is a free man, he still feels a need to step up and help others.
Morally speaking, it was only right that I pay it back forward by not just, in speech.
He's raising money, looking for work, and lobbying Pennsylvania government to pass a victims' compensation bill for people who are proven to have been incarcerated wrongly. It's the kind of story that honestly most people doubt ever really happens, which is why he says this fight is so important. There's so much to this story, and I feel like we could do a couple of shows, but I do want to touch on, you got out, you get the settlement, and immediately you start taking some of that settlement, you start your foundation.
True.
Tell us about the foundation.
Absolutely. So I can hang my hat on survivor's guilt. I can say, morally speaking, it was only right that I pay it back forward by not just, in speech. I wanted to advocate on behalf of Pennsylvanians to get them home, first and foremost, and then provide them with the necessary resources to keep them home. And I went around galvanizing, UPenn students and Temple students and Georgetown law students to basically cut out the administrative work for an attorneys so that a pro bono attorney or a low bono attorney would have the time in their day to look at these cases, that definitely need another eye looked at.
People can get more information, and we're going to do more going forward. I wanted to spend time to reconnect, make sure people are aware of the story, make sure people know how to get in touch with you and support the foundation. And just to catch up. I appreciate the fact that you've come and continue to share your story and the work that you're doing.
Appreciate you too, Bill, for having me and for using your voice to give the opportunity for individuals similarly situated as myself, or who have a story to tell, such as myself. I'm glad that my cries and my seeking out to you and your help, needing your assistance, didn't fall upon deaf ears.
20 years in, but now 4 out, and so a lifetime ahead.
Exactly.
To continue to make positive change
and build from there.
That's a yes.
Absolutely.
We will absolutely do that.
All right.
Guys, thank you so much for watching a little bit different episode of The Pulse today with Terrance Lewis. Frankly, we did the episode because his story is an important one to tell. His story is reflective of a lot of people out there whose story is not being told. I appreciated his story, wanted to share it, and I hope that you have an appreciation for it as well. Stay on top of his story. You're going to see more of the good work that he's doing going forward. And there was a lot more that didn't make it to the show that you can hear on the podcast. So make sure you go and subscribe, listen to podcasts, any place podcasts are available. You can hit me up on social media. I'm always eager to hear from you at Bill A. Fox 29. And every day, but especially today, I leave you, as I always do, reminding you whenever you can, use your voice for good and change, and have a good one.